This last weekend on the Capitol lawn in Washington, D.C., mourners gathered to commemorate those who lost their lives in the line of duty and instead got a backhanded compliment from Joe Biden's husband. National Police Week had recently been moved to October just for this year, like an off-cycle police week due to some cancellations during the whole COVID-19 thing. And this event has been going on for generations and has a couple of key things that happen each time at it. First is the candlelight vigil to commemorate the names being etched on the memorial wall of those officers who have fallen in the line of duty. And the other one is the memorial service to commemorate those same people on the Capitol lawn, where surviving family members, friends, police department members, and those that are accompanying them are all gathered together on that Capitol lawn. That happened this last weekend, and I have participated in Police Week for years in many capacities, both as a supporter and as a survivor. And so this is something that's near and dear to my heart. It matters. How we treat the fallen, how we remember their sacrifice is really important and indicative of where we're headed. Also as a profession, as a culture, if we lose that, we lose so much. And so to see the text messages that I was getting from people who were sitting on the lawn while President Biden was speaking, and then to see the photo opportunity that he put on his Facebook page, where people were just fawning over him without ever having any skin in this game or even listening to what he said. It was just a really crazy juxtaposition, and I listened to the whole speech multiple times, and I want to break down for you in this video why this was just one big giant slap in the face, a backhanded compliment to every single law enforcement surviving family there, and everyone that is even going to be aware of this. The beginning of the speech, it starts out great, actually, okay? So normally there's dignitaries. Sometimes it's the president, sometimes the vice president, attorney general. There's been all sorts of ones. This is obviously the president of the United States, and he starts out great.
Most importantly, the families here today, this is all about you. About you.
Perfect. Stop there. I wish he could just stop right there, and then just the rest of the speech lived up to that. It should be about the people he's talking about. It should be about the heroes. It should be about those that loved them and supported them. This is a memorial service. It should be about that. That's exactly right. Unfortunately, as you can guess, this veers off into freaking outer space, and we skip off into the abyss, because he's not gonna actually make it about them. For a very short period of time, he says some good things. I'll let him continue.
And it always amazes me how the public doesn't fully understand what we expect of our law enforcement officers.
Oh, really?
We expect you to be people ready to stand in the way and take a bullet for us. We expect you to be able to track down the bad guys. We expect you to be the psychologist who talks to a couple that are having a violent confrontation together to step back. We expect you to be everything. We expect everything of you. And it's beyond the capacity of anyone to meet the total expectations. Being a cop today is one hell of a lot harder than it's ever been. For the families of the fallen, you've suffered an enormous loss.
He's saying some great stuff here, as rightfully he should, okay? I don't think that he wrote them. He even goes on to, there's this amazing line that he culminates with saying, "Your loss is America's loss, and your pain is America's pain." What a great and a very true line. I'm so glad that he read it. He certainly didn't write it. We know this dementia patient didn't grab his pudding and get a pen and etch those lines, but at least he was able to read it without stumbling over his own words. But again, unfortunately, it doesn't stay in that vein. Those are almost just the obligatory niceties that he has to say in order to tee up what he's really going to want to talk about, which is not those that paid the ultimate sacrifice, and it is certainly not the family members that are sitting there. I'll link the full unedited. You can look at this and listen to it all in context. The speech goes on for a little bit longer, just exactly like you would expect a politician's speech to go on. He immediately turns and just talks about himself, okay? That's the bottom line of what happens for the next 10 or 12 minutes is just about him. Not really a lot of great stuff, but you can listen to it yourself. But we really take a turn right about here.
So under the mournful sound of the bagpipes, we must also hear something else. Call to do better, to do more, to keep you safe, to keep our communities safer, for us to step up, build trust and respect, and heal the breach we now see in so many communities. To recognize that the promise of equal and impartial justice remains a promise, but not always a reality.
I'm sorry, did you just tell the surviving family members of people that did a job that you say is almost impossible to do that they need to do better? Wait, did you just say that?
For you or others, particularly in low-income communities. Too many communities, black and brown. Too many families are grieving unnecessary losses of their sons, their daughters, their fathers, their brothers. I want to acknowledge the FOP, as was mentioned earlier, for sincerely trying to reach an agreement on meaningful reforms, congressional reform, and the negotiations over the George Floyd Policing Act. But here's the part. A lot of the help has to come to police departments. They need help to do better.
All right, guys, this isn't going to be a deep dive into the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that passed along party lines, shocker, but this isn't a deep dive into that. What this is I'm just going to take a big overview and tell you why this is a huge slap in the face, not the least of which is mentioning the name of a criminal who's the politicians and the elite were allowed to go to his funeral service during COVID-19, but this commemoration service had been delayed all the way till this last weekend for those that are honoring the heroes that he says have a terrible job. Leaving that nonsense aside, the very mentioning of these names and juxtaposing them together on a commemoration service for officers, the problem is that the Justice and Policing Act actually is completely contradictory to what he just said. He said that we need more tools to do our jobs as cops, so he wants to provide more resources for cops to do their jobs. But the problem is that the Justice and Policing Act literally removes those options. It takes away more options for police to do their jobs when it comes to restraining resisting subjects. It takes away the safety of being able to step in and do your job in difficult circumstances because of civil liability. And then further, it actually, he says that you have to go out there and do this immeasurably tough job. And we want to give you more resources, but the actual act that passed removes surplus items from police departments. It literally is contradictory. He's saying one thing while literally passing legislation and promoting legislation that does the exact opposite. And he's doing it in a way with a name that spits in the face of everyone sitting on that lawn. Moving on, what's another fantastic way that cops can do better?
We need to work together to confront the epidemic of gun violence. Your brothers and sisters have told me over the years sometimes you feel like you're outgunned. Right now, the Justice Department, under the leadership of Attorney General Garland, is working with state and local law enforcement across the country to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous individuals. They now have zero tolerance for gun dealers who willfully violate the law, putting firearms in the hands of people who are a danger to the community and you. I also want to make it easy for states to adopt red flag laws. Laws that allow family members or law enforcement to petition a court order to temporarily remove firearms from people who are in crisis.
That's right, gun control. No memorial service from a politician would be complete without leveraging it to promote your ideology about gun control. First of all, who is telling this guy? What cops is he hanging out with that's like, man, being a cop is great, but we're just so outgunned out there. Who's saying that? No one is telling him that. This is made up nonsensical jargon that he's just spewing on this stage. Not reality. And there's a couple other little problems here. First of all, that police officers, law enforcement officers are sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution when it comes to the communities they police, which would mean in helping to uphold constitutional rights, not remove them through federal oversteps in things like red flag laws and deciding when and when and when not someone should have a firearm because you're a cop. No, no, no. What if, hear me out here, what if maybe we stopped the bail reform? How about we leave the guns aside for a second? We talk about bail reform. If you really want to keep criminals from doing criminal things, how about we stop putting them right back out on the street where they came from when they got arrested last time? But that would actually make these families feel like what their law enforcement officer that they cared about, what they did wasn't in vain. Lastly, you're not going to believe the last way we can all do better.
COVID-19 has caused more deaths in the line of duty than all the other causes combined. Many of those lost their lives keeping our society safe, serving on the front lines in those dark early days of the pandemic. But now, let us prevent preventable tragedies.
He never actually says it, but we all know exactly what he is saying that we should do if we really want to do better as cops. We really, you can't say it, right, YouTube? But you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of little nuances, other things that I could pick out about this, but I wanted to give you the key ways that what he is saying is literally something that would be deeply hurtful and offensive to the families of those sitting there listening, many of whom have reached out and have expressed their gratitude for me. Things like when I comment on Joe Biden's post on Facebook where he takes the photo op of him on stage and everybody's fawning over him while the families are like scratching their heads. You just told us that our family members did an amazing, difficult job. We expect so much of our cops, but that we need to do better. While we're listening to the bagpipes, we also need to plan to further your policies. And this is just, it just cuts all the wrong ways. This is so deeply offensive, so insensitive, so politicized. It's disgusting, quite honestly. You're basically saying that for us to do better as both family members remembering the sacrifice of our loved ones and for those that are in uniform still, the only way they can do better is to agree with you politically and further your agenda. No, sir. Don't think so. Wrong place, wrong time, and for another discussion, wrong ideas anyway. All right, thanks for listening to me rant about this. I needed to get it off my chest. What do you guys think? If you appreciate the content that I'm putting out, continue to comment, continue to like it, share, subscribe if that's applicable, follow if that's applicable, all the good stuff. Visit relentlessdefender.com/MTC. Use code Mike the Cop for free shipping on any of their material.